Hi guys, welcome to the third part of the Unity Ball series. Today I will teach you how to add more levels to your game and also how to create player's death screen that when the player dies we will see the high score. Last time we have added some coins and obstacles that can damage the player, so if you didn't see that video, feel free to check it out and we'll start. So we will start with adding those levels to the game. First, we need to detect when the level has finished. So when the player gets to the end of the level, we want to load new scene because each scene is going to be new level. If you are not familiar with scenes, we are actually right now in one scene, which we have in the prefab. It is called the sample scene, so I will rename it to level 1. And we can also create level 2, so create scene level 2, and like this you can create as many scenes as you want. It is important to have all your scenes in the build settings. Here we have these scenes in build, and here you need to have all the scenes that you want to use in your game. So just open the scene, hit add open scenes, and do this for level 2 as well. So for the detection of the end of the level, we will do this by collider, the same way that we did it with those coins in the last video. So I will create 3D object cube, which will be representing end of the level. I will move it to 0, 0, 0 and put it to the end of the level like this. I will also scale it. Because we want the player to go like through end of the level, we will make the collider is trigger. And because I would like to make it transparent, I will create new material. So create material, this will be end of level. And I will make it green. And also here you can select in rendering mode, you can select transparent. And then here change the alpha like this. And add the material to the end of the level, and you can see that it is transparent now. And because when the player collides with some object, we need to know if it was the end of the level. For this, I will create a new tag, the same way that we did it for those coins. Now we can go into the player's script, and here we have the onTrigger enter, which is for the coins, and we can just say if we are colliding with some object and the object isn't the coin, which means that this branch is false, we can then ask if the object stack is end of level. If this is true, we then want to load the next level scene. This might be a bit harder than you might think, because you might think that you can just say scene load scene, but this would only load the scene, and because in the second scene I have no player, then we wouldn't have the player in that scene. You could obviously create a player for each scene, but then once you change the player, you would have to change it in all those scenes, so this isn't very effective. What we do instead is we will have the player only in one scene, and each time we go to the next level, we will just take the player from the scene 1 to the scene 2. This we can do using node move object to scene. But for this, we can't just load the second scene and take the player from the first scene, because the first scene wouldn't be loaded. We need to have two scenes loaded at the same time, then take the player, move it to the second scene, and unload the first scene. So we need to have two scenes loaded at the same time. For this, we will be using the load scene async, and we want the one that has also the mode in parameters, because we can set it to additive, and like this we can have multiple scenes loaded at the same time. And also, because the code is getting a bit bigger now, I will give you one tip how to make it more compact. So you can create something called subgraph, and this is it looks just like one node, But when I double click it, you can see that a whole new window opens where I can put, for example, like 100 nodes, and here I can go back to the player and it will still look like one node. So you can just compact bigger code into just one node. So I can double click it, and as you see here, we have no inputs for this node. For changing of the levels, we only need to activate the node. So we can easily add here trigger inputs, which is the flow. So I will just name it flow. And when I get back to the player, you can see that I can activate this subgraph. I can also name it load next level. And just when the tag is the end of the level, I can just trigger this subgraph. So on input, we want to load the second level. So I have those two nodes here. I will load scene async, but first I need to know which scene I want to load. Because I want to, if I'm in level 1, I want to load level 2. If I'm in level 5, I want to load level 6. So for this, we can get active scene, and this will get us the scene as you can see in the output. But because when I'm loading the scene, I need the scene build index. So I will just get the build index, and to this I will add 1 because I want to move to the next level. So add 1 and load the next level. Make sure that you have the mode on additive. So we load the next level. And now we could move the object to the next scene, but because the loading of the level takes some time, we want to make sure that we are moving the object into the scene only when the scene is actually loaded. So for this, we have node scene is loaded. But because this whole script is going to trigger only once, because we get into the end of the level only once, we need to somehow be checking it until the scene is loaded. So we will create if, but if you would have it like this, it would check only once and then nothing would happen. So for this, we'll use volume toggle, this toggle volume, toggle flow. So toggle flow, and here we can just toggle the flow, for example, on the on or off. So when the scene is not loaded, we want this to be on and be constantly checking if the scene is loaded. And when the scene is loaded, we want to set this to off, so it is no longer checking. The first input, we want to make it update. And then when we start loading the scene, we can set it to on. And when it is on, we will be constantly checking if the next scene is loaded. So for this, we need to also, because this input is scene, we need to get the scene from this build index. So we can just say scene get scene by build index, and we will just wait until this scene is loaded. And when this is true, we can easily toggle this flow to off. But when it is true, we also want to move those objects. So for this, we can use new node, which is sequence. And when this is true, we want to turn off this volume, and also we want to move the objects to the scene. Which objects we want to move? This will be the player. And also we can move the canvas, which is the user interface, which will be same in each level. And we can also move the event system. Now I'm going to create variables for those objects that we will be moving to the next levels. We can move the player, so just get this object. So to which scene? It will be to this scene that we have gotten here. And we'll also move the event system and the canvas. And after we have moved all of those objects to the second scene, we can just unload the first scene. So we will just say unload scene async, and we can use this with the scene build index. And the index is just the active scenes build index. And here I made a tiny mistake that I connected this get scene by build index to the active scene, which is here, and not to the next level that we want to load. So it should be like this. Yeah, so now here in the hierarchy you can see that I'm in the level 2 and I have moved the player, canvas and the event system to the level 2. Right now we have nothing in the level 2, but at least we can see that this works. So now I will go into the level 2 and just delete the main camera because I already have one on the player which will move to the scene, and you could obviously take all of the stuff from the first scene like the environment, copy it to the second level and just change it however you want. And also after we move the player to the second scene, we want to make sure that he's on the starting position. So right now the starting position is 1, 1 and minus 60. So we can go into the script and I will set the position actually before I load the scene. So I will just say position set, transform that position set, position of this, which is the player, and this is the 1, 1 and minus 60. So now when we move to the second level, the player will be on the starting position. So now we can run through the first level and we appear right in the second. But you can see that the lighting is a bit off in the second level, which is mistake with the when we load those scene async. There is something wrong with baking those lights. So what we need to do is go into the second level. Here, open window, and under rendering we have lightning. So open this window and just hit generate lightning. Now it will generate all those light maps, and when you try it once more, it should be all looking the same as in the first level. Yep, this is a lot better. Next, we will make the dev screen for the player. We will be making this under the canvas. So first, I will just create some empty object, which will be for the dev screen. And also one which will be for the score and the slider that I have here. So this will be HUD, and just put it under the HUD. And under the dev screen, we can switch to 2D so we can see it better. And under the dev screen, I will create some panel like this. We can also make it less transparent. And here we will just put the current score that we have gotten and the high score. So in the application variables, I will create new variable for the high score. This will be integer. So here I will also add text match pro. This will be the score. Make it black and put it somewhere here. So this will just say current score. And new text which will show the high score. And I will create button which will be for the respawn. So we can create this button, text mesh pro, and change the text on the button so it says respawn. So now we will change those texts. This will be the same as we did it last time with the score. So go to the canvas. I will create new variables. So and we can just copy this part of the code. So we have the score text on the dev, set it to score and the player score, and the high score, set the high score text, high score, and take the high score variable. For the button, there's two ways how you can make it work, you can either use the on button click, or which I like better is using the events. So when I select the button, here in the inspector you can find the on click event. So we can just add new event. Here we need to select on which object we want to run this event. So this will be the canvas because we have the script here. The function, we can take the script machine and trigger Unity event string. Here we can type name of the event. So this will be respawn. And in the script, I can just create a new node, Unity event, type the name, respawn, that we have here. And then we want to probably set the player self to the maximum and set the score to 0. Now we need to define when the player has died. So obviously the player has died when the player's health is lower than 0. So we will go to the player, and here I can just make update, and if the health is less or equal than 0, so the player get player health. When the health is lower or equal than 0, we can make new application variable, which will be for game over, and this will be bool, type yes or no. So when the health is less or equal than 0, we can set game over to true, and when this is false, we can set it to false. And when it is the game over, we also want to set the time scale of the game to 0, which will just make it that the game will be like frozen. So you can use time scale set, and when it is game over, we can set it to 0, and when game over is not, we can set it to 1. And also, when we press the respawn, we want to load the first scene because we might die like in the 5th level, so we want to load the first level. And here we won't need to use the load scene async because in the first level we already have the player, so we just need to load the scene, which will automatically unload the last level that we have been in. And load the scene 0. The build index, you can find it in build settings. So the first level is index 0. And we also want to set the player's position to the starting position. So position set, transform that position set, and we can first set the position and then load the scene. So the starting position is 1, 1 and minus 60, 1, 1 and minus 60, but here we need to set the object of which position we want to set, which is the player. So for this I will create a new variable. Now for the UI, because we have the game over UI, we also want to turn it on when it is game over. So I will create new variable for the game over UI and also for the HUD, because when it is game over, we want to turn off the HUD. So on update, we want to set active, which will just set the object to true or to false. Set active, which object? This will be the game over UI. And when it is game over, we want to set this to true. So we can just take the game over and put it to the bool. And the opposite, when it is game over, we want to set the HUD to false, and when it isn't game over, we want to set it to true. So here we can just take this bool, negate the bool, which will make it the opposite bool, and set active the HUD to the opposite value of the game over. Like this. Yep, you can see that when I died, there is the dev screen. It also shows the score. I can hit respawn, and I spawn in the level 1. Now, last thing, we will implement the Highscore, which will be pretty easy. We can do this on the player. So we will do this on the player, on update, and we could just check every single frame if the score is higher than the high score, but it would be more effective to set the high score to the new high score only when it is game over, like for the first time, because we don't want to be checking it all the time when it is game over. So we can just use if game over, get game over. But if we want it to only check it like once when it is true, we can use the node once and the reset connected to the false. So when the game over is false, nothing will happen. But when the game over is true for the first time, it will trigger this node once and then nothing will happen. This way it will only trigger once. So next we can just set high score, and we want to set it to score, but only if the score is greater than the high score. So if greater, and if the score, so player score, is greater than the high score, we then want to set the high score to the player's score. And actually, for the high score, we could use the saved variables. That way, the high score will just save. So I will just make it into the saved variables. I will also change this variable because we have it now only saved. Yeah, now you can see that I have the high score on 1. I can try to collect more coins, and then the high score will be obviously higher. Yeah, now I have gotten a high score of 4. So like this, you could create as many levels as you would want, customize them, and we have also the high score. In next part, I will show you how to add some custom obstacles that will be like rotating, moving, also how to add some effects that the game looks a bit better, how to add some sounds, and much more. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!